Right.
So where are you from originally, Dean? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Bosnia.
Really?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
actually. It's a fun fact. So Nina
Yep.
Damjanovic, she's from the same hometown I'm from.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah, except she, I think, migrated later. But yeah, so I grew up in Bosnia, and then when I was about 6, I migrated to Germany. I was a refugee.
Okay.
Fled my country due to war.
Yeah.
And then
At that time, who were there at war with?
pretty much internal conflict.
Yeah.
6 countries amongst each other. So Yugoslavia split up in 6.
Got it.
6 nations, and they all were fighting each other. It was bizarre and crazy.
Yeah.
And then when that was going on, we actually fled to Germany. They actually had refugee buses for certain families to get out.
Wow.
I was fortunate with my family to be on that list.
How big was your family?
So my mom, my dad, myself, and then we had, grandparents on both ends, lots of distant cousins. I'm the only child, so I don't have any siblings. And it was just, distant cousins and family relatives. Most of them stayed back because they couldn't get out.
Got it.
Some eventually left later, through about halfway towards the end of the war. And for us, we were fortunate enough to get out early.
Yeah.
And then we migrated to, like I said, to Germany. So we stayed there from 1992 until 1998.
So how old were you at the time?
I was just shy of 6 when I left my homeland, and I was about 11 and a half when I left Germany.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you remember this vividly?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Now at 6, what is that like? Like, what do your parents tell you? Because, I mean, you're 6-year-old, you're a kid. You're very innocent. You don't know the details of what's going on, and, to that level. What did they tell you, and what were you thinking?
It was all transparent. We all knew what was going on. We knew there was a war. We knew it was good guys, bad guys.
Yeah.
That's all we knew as children.
Yeah.
But I do remember very vividly one day I was sitting, with my mom at her friend's house, and the other kids were all friends and playing. And all of a sudden, we hear this troop convoy of trucks going down the road, and they were firing AK-47s.
Wow.
We didn't know if they were firing at the houses, at people, or just shooting in the air.
Yeah.
So, imagine being 4 or 5 years old, and we have to duck down under the table, protect yourselves under the windows because you don't know what's happening. And then another point was we had a tear gas bomb dropped in our front yard.
Yeah.
We didn't know what it was. We cracked the door open about this much, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden it just hits you in the face, and you start choking. Next morning, my dad's uncle found a giant canister about maybe 1.5 feet long sitting in the yard, and it was thrown over the mountain into our area, and it landed right in front of our house.
Wow.
You don't know what was going on, but you just know it was good guys, bad guys.
Yeah.
And there came a time where we had to get on a certain refugee list and be approved because not everybody could go to flee the country. And I remember, Mike, as we were leaving through the bordering territories between Bosnia, Croatia, you see smoke in the distance on the hills from the houses being burnt.
Yeah.
There's giant mortar holes on the streets.
Wow.
Bridges were literally torn down by explosives. There's no bridges. There's literally these ferries taking the buses across the river because the river was bordering both countries, taking you from one end to the other. And it's just you see these things, and you remember bits and pieces of what was going on. And you're like, this is unreal.
Yeah.
And then beyond that point, growing up in a different country, you don't speak the language.
Right.
You're a foreigner. Foreigners weren't allowed at that time almost. It was very strange to the German people there that were growing up, and they were like, why are these foreigners here?
Yeah.
But then they had to adapt because they understood what was really going on with the conflicts, and because back then there was no social media, there was no cell phones. It's all news. You see what's on the TV, and then trying to grow up in a second country, being brought in and being accepted, so to say, by the kids there in the school system and everything, not knowing what they were saying, but we managed.
Yeah.
Learned the language, and I think Germany for me was one of the best time I've ever had growing up.
Really?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
The country's like probably the cleanest country I've ever lived in, I've been in general. The people are nice. The culture is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But just the area, we lived in the southern parts of Bavaria, which is probably about 35, 40 minutes from the Austrian border.
Okay.
But we're only like 45 minutes north of Munich, where Oktoberfest was there.
Yeah.
So we would go to Oktoberfest, to the festival, and where I was a kid, and all the time, and it was just beautiful. beautiful area. You know, see the Alps in the back and everything. And then again, 6 years later, that gets taken away from you because you couldn't stay there.
Why couldn't you stay there?
The German government had made an announcement that if you're a refugee under 8 years, you cannot stay in this country. You have to find a way out.
Wow.
We were shy of 2.
Yeah.
Once you're 8, you qualify for citizenship, but we didn't make it that long.
Got it.
And we had no out. They gave us a few options. You can either go back home, which we couldn't. It was just 2 years, 3 years post-war.
Yeah.
And everything was devastating. The economy was terrible. They're still rebuilding or trying to rebuild at that time.
So this time the war is over, but the country's
it's over,
like
demolished. But there's still conflict. There's still internal conflicts which people weren't fond of. It wasn't safe 100%.
Got it.
And we thankfully, my dad's side of the family established their life here in the U.S.
Really?
So the process to come to the U.S., you had to have a sponsor. You can't just jump on a plane and be like, welcome to the U.S.
Yeah.
Somebody has to sponsor you, and the sponsorship has to prove that their income, their careers, their job, everything has to support you for a short period of time in order to make it happen.
Okay.
So they were established. And then for a whole year from all the way through 1997, my mom and dad went through a series of interviews with the American consulate.
Yeah.
Why this? Why that? Why America? Why, basically.
And you're what, 11, 12 at this time?
At that time, I was about 9, 10.
9, 10, okay.
And they basically said, well, we just want a great future for our son. This is land of opportunity. Let's go. So finally, after I think 3 or 4 interviews, maybe more, I can't recall, we got approved.
Yeah.
And our date was February 13th, 1998.
Wow.
We got we drove up to Frankfurt, Germany, and we hopped on a Delta Airlines flight to JFK Airport in New York. And I remember the whole time in all of 1997, I have these pictures I can share with you guys. I was prepared. I had like a T-shirt with the USA flag, holding the flag. I was excited because I was like, it's America, because you see a lot of movies.
I'll say at this point, what did you know of America?
Dude, I watched a bunch of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies.
Really?
Yeah. I watched a lot of those like American was like Schwarzenegger, Stallone, all those like 90s like classic hit movies, man. And you're excited because you got to see like, hey, I get to go to New York. I get to, go to these areas, and you see that in person. And for me as a kid, I was excited.
So you were excited about that, even though, I mean, you moved from, Bosnia to Germany, now to the U.S., but you were excited about this movie.
I was. Yeah. I was totally excited because I just wanted to, we were ready for a fresh start because we had a new clean slate, so to say.
Right.
So we came here. I did learn a little bit of English in Germany, but it was British English, not American English.
Yeah.
Slight words were different. And then when I came to the U.S., I was fortunate. I had a teacher who spoke German.
Really?
So she helped me kind of get going, and she, to this day, I still kept it. She bought me a little German-English dictionary translator, and it was really cool because she helped me kind of get accustomed to the kids there and everything else, and people became very fond, and people were like, hey, how do you say this in German? Or they would teach me bad words first.
Of course.
It's always how it is in every language you learn.
Did you trade? Did you teach them the bad German?
Oh, yeah. Of course. I got one kid in trouble because I said the S word one day, and I'm blaming on him. I was like, I didn't speak English. I was like, and he went to the principal's office, and that was funny. But it was cool growing up, and then,
Where did you guys move first when you came here?
We moved directly into Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where my dad's family lived for a little bit. And we stayed there.
How long were they in the States before you guys?
I think 2 or 3 years prior to us, yeah. So they got, established pretty well because they left right in the middle of the war, and they came straight to the U.S.
Yeah.
They didn't go anywhere else because there was some opportunity to come to the U.S. back then.
Got it.
And fun fact, too, like back in the early, mid-'90s when people were refuging a country, most went to either Chicago or St. Louis or New York.
Really?
So Chicago and St. Louis, hold the most population of Bosnian communities.
Wow.
To this day. And then everybody just kind of, as more people came, they started spreading out across the different states and cities across the country. So that was kind of cool to learn. But we stayed in Virginia.
Yeah.
And then, my dad eventually, he was an electrician for many, many years.
Now, was he an electrician back home? Or
he was.
Okay,
yeah.
so he was able to kind of keep that same job.
Yeah, so he came over here, worked for an electrical company, and then when he learned that he can start his own business, he goes, I'm going to start my own business.
Yeah.